So welcome everybody to the next installment for Ghost School. Today's class is going to be ghost theories and activities, I should say. Now, one of the things I want to express is I don't always share the same views as what I'm going to share with you. I'm just kind of going over all the different theories and ideas out there. Some are still practiced today. So I just want to throw those out there just so you know what people are claiming. But again, a lot of these cannot be validated. And I don't always share the views on these, and I may go into a little bit of my viewpoint. But again, this is not a cult. You don't need to believe what I believe. You have the rights to believe what you would like to as well. So getting started in this presentation, what is a ghost? Well, again, no one knows for certain as to what a ghost is. There are, however, many theories to explain the thousands upon thousands of documented experiences that people all around the world have experienced since recorded time. Now, oh, sorry, wrong button here. Now, the answer as to what a ghost isn't easy. Most common belief is the spirit of a dead person. It is any supernatural or paranormal phenomena related to ESP, or is it just recorded energy left behind, or is it just our own imaginations? Now, continuing with this, it is a general belief that when a person dies, the soul or mind abandons the body and survives in an astral plane amongst the living. So that is the main belief. Now, of course, we do know there could be an attached or trapped to the physical world. Some may even exist in some kind of limbo, which they haunt the scenes of where their deaths or locations where they were pleasant to them throughout life. Or a ghost is simply a part of a human mind that can coexist in a physical world outside of the physical body. Now, Hans Holzer stated that a ghost is a human being who has passed out of the physical body, usually in a traumatic state, and is not aware of their true condition. We are all spirits encased in a physical body. At the time of passing, our spirit body continues into the next dimension. A ghost, on the other hand, due to trauma, is stuck in our physical world and needs to be released to go on. Now, proving their existence, why is there not a device that points out a ghost or spirit activity? Now, as I've always stated, to develop a ghost meter, you have to have a complete understanding of what a spirit's physical makeup is. And we do not know this, all right? We are still exploring this. Due to the fact that these energies have the ability to adjust to their environments and create changes in the normal environment, these are some of the reasons why it's complicated in trying to develop a device like this. Now, uncontrolled experiments, uncontrolled environments can't bring the ghost to the lab. So basically, what I'm stating there is the biggest problem we have is we cannot bring the phenomena into the lab to study it. All right, we have to go into these environments that in most cases are uncontrolled to try and prove that there is some sort of changes to the environment. Now, you also have to understand that if you are going with the concept that ghosts are somebody who has passed on, then you're also dealing with something that has free will. There is intelligence involved. And when you're dealing with something that has free will, it doesn't have to communicate to you if it chooses not to. So you have to keep that in mind as well. Now, being that there are so many theories to ghosts, we are finding that everyone's experiences have a totally different makeup behind them. And this is another reason why it's so complicated to prove the existence of ghosts, because there is a different combination to every haunting. The best way to prove that something exists is to have the ability to recreate it at any time or under the same conditions, which we cannot. Now, the closest we can come to this is if we are able to track down the patterns to residual hauntings, which I will get into that. So once you know a pattern to a residual haunting, you have a better chance of trying to capture that phenomena. Now, if ghosts did the same thing every time, you would have one phenomena to research. And I've expressed this quite a few times. Again, always stating that if we had just dishes flying out of the cupboards at every haunted house, then we would only have to focus on that one true phenomena. But again, there's so many different combinations, there's so many different patterns to this phenomena. So this is what's made it so much harder to prove the existence of ghosts. So why a ghost? Well, there is attachment to a person, place, or thing, a tragic death, a guardian or to watch over someone, a sudden or premature death, fear of judgment. And what that means is if you are a religious individual and you have realized that you have passed, you may judge yourself and feel that you are not a good enough person to go on to your heaven. So you may stick around here. Unfinished business. You may have certain tasks and goals that you wanted to accomplish and will stay around to try and complete those. The out-of-body experience. There have been numerous cases where people have had out-of-body experiences and people have seen them. One well-known case is a family was sitting in their living room and they just purchased their daughter a little red balloon. And of course, she just loved this. She was playing with it all day, but they went and sent her to bed. You know, it's bedtime. And of course, later that night, they watched this little red balloon start dancing around in the living room and doing these odd things that a balloon would not do, as if somebody was playing with the balloon. The next morning, the little girl had stated that she had a dream that she was playing with that little red balloon. And so we believe that she had an out-of-body experience. And was playing with the balloon in her dream state. People have seen apparitions of people while they're in an out-of-body experience as well. Revenge. If you happen to be a victim of a horrible event, such as a murder, you may want revenge on that person. So you'll stick around for that. Now, energy. Ghosts are defined as an elemental force, which is energy, and an energy field floating around in its pure disembodied state, and uses psi abilities to produce information to interact with people and objects. So, such as the pencil test. Now, telekinesis. A lot of people, I don't know if you've ever tried this yourself, but you find yourself just staring at an object and you're thinking to yourself, God, I wish I could just move that object. And some people have tried this. I know I've tried this myself. You just stare at a pencil lying on a table and you just will it to move. In most cases, it doesn't, but some people believe that they have the capability of physically moving objects with their mind. And again, this is telekinesis. Now, this brings into the question that when somebody passes, does that ability carry on as well? Or is this another way that we learn to utilize the environment around us by using telekinesis in the afterlife? Now, it's believed that psi ability is present when it comes to ghosts creating physical activity. So when it comes to the psi abilities, there was always a big belief that women were more psychic than men. Today, we are coming into a field where there are more psychic men out there than probably 50 years ago. Now, this could be that why they feel that women are more psychic than men is, you know, of course, women are also the big part of bringing life into the world. And so maybe there is this sort of, you know, psychic connection, especially from a mother to her child. There have been many documented cases where mother knows when her child's in danger, when the child's nowhere around. The child could be living in a totally different state. So there has been many cases like that, where the mother has known information about her child that she should not know. So that could be some sort of psychic connection. Um, Now, I believe that there are psychic men as well. Again, there's also the big belief that I believe everybody has the possibility, but we're not really in tune with ourselves to actually connect with that ability. In fact, to really get involved in the psi abilities that an individual could possibly have, you really have to be able to get into a meditative state. And a lot of people can't get to that. So that is what's really limited a lot of people when it comes to that. Now, they have always stated that we only use 10% of our brain, but that is not true. Recent studies have found that we do use all aspects of our brain, but each part of the brain functions in a different way and has different jobs. So we don't always use our full percentage of the brain at one time. So on average, yeah, we probably use 10% of our brain daily, but it's doing different things. So it's different parts of our brain that are doing that. And they've used this number just to kind of state that maybe our brain is meant to do other things that we're just not aware of. We haven't grasped that as well. But as we continue to get into the science of how the brain works, of course, they're learning more and more that there is certain job tasks that different parts of the brain have. Now, we are learning that electromagnetic waves that accomplish most psychic elements are no different than the ones all around us. They're only vary by frequency and wavelength. So one of the things I want to bring up is, I know if you've ever watched, I know recently we watched one of the shows that Jacob had put up, where one of the gentlemen was using a device to read brainwave activity during the investigation. Now, he was trying to state that the paranormal phenomena will trigger brainwave activity to the person viewing it. And I believe that is wrong. I believe if you are going to document any type of brainwave activity during an investigation, you want to be able to determine if that person is actually physically causing the phenomena through some sort of psi ability. So it's not going to be the other way around. You're going to react if you actually experience phenomena, rather than the situation where you might be producing the phenomena itself. So I do believe that this does need to be recorded more during investigations, but only due to the fact that I think this phenomena could be coming from the individuals on the property, not necessarily the ghost. So everybody has the possibilities, and I've already discussed this. As I said, we're just not really in tune with ourselves to open those psychic channels. Now, looking for evidence. Now, Albert Einstein came around and he told us that energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be converted or transformed from one state to another. And that is basically true. We are learning how energy transforms from one state to a different state. So being that we ourselves operate by utilizing energy, our brain utilizes energy to operate. What happens to this energy when we pass? And that has been the biggest question when it comes to ghosts. So we're still exploring that. So this also takes us into what is the soul. Now, the soul is stated to be your essence, your being, the part that lives beyond the body and passes on to the next level of existence. Now, it's believed that man does not exist without a soul. But unfortunately, there is no proof that the soul exists. This is based off of faith. Now, there was an experiment done in 1901. It was actually published in 1907, but the experiment actually took place in 1901 by Duncan McDougall, and he believed that the soul could be weighed. And so what he did is he took 5 patients on the verge of death, and he weighed these patients. And he did find that one patient right after death actually changed a weight, dropped about 21 grams, which is actually 1.5 ounces in weight right after death. Now, the others, their weight was constantly going up and down, so it's really hard to prove if this experiment was successful or not, and many people believe that it was not. There's been a lot of controversy about how he conducted the experiment, and he had done quite a bit of different experiments. He started with animals as well. They said that he had worked with dogs. There's also been another gentleman, I forgot his name. He actually was doing some research after this where he had utilized sheep and goats to see if there was any changes after death. And again, it's been really hard to prove because the weight does bounce up and down. Now, looking for evidence or photography, or also known as Kirlian photography, this was discovered in 1937, and it's a process of passing electrical currents through the body, and then it's also placed on a photographic plate. Now, we've gotten into the digital form now, so I've recently done some work with Kirlian photography, so it is an interesting phenomena that we're going to be exploring a little bit more in the near future. It is expensive. I think for the device, it's like about $6,000. But this photo right here is an example of Kirlian photography. As you can see, the subject will be surrounded by this light. The light will be in different colors, different extremes, depending on the individual themselves. And that pattern and color can change. And they believe it changes due to the mood of the individual as well. Now, they continued to do experiments with this, and they thought that this was actually proof of the soul. The soul definitely existed. This is what they were capturing in these photos. Now, one of the experiments they did, which was an interesting experiment, was called the torn leaf experiment. And this is where they took a picture of a leaf, and as you can see, the light around the leaf still existed. And they've done this with things that have that are living. This is one of the things that will actually show that light. Then they took that leaf and they ripped off the leafy parts and they took a picture of just the twig. And, oops, sorry, got a little head here, didn't work right. But in the photo behind this other one, you'll actually see, there's a light still that showed up of the leaf. Now, they've also done this with people who have actually lost limbs. And they claim in this photo right here, as you can see, the gentleman has lost an arm. And still there was this energy around as if there may be still that energy of the arm. So there is some experiments that I think should continue on with this. I think it is an interesting phenomena when it comes to measuring our own energy. So as we continue with our energy force, when we get into some of the experiments, one of the things that I found is people usually reserve about 2 to 3 feet of space around them. You know, when you're in a crowded space, you tend to not like people too close to you unless they are people that you are familiar with or are good friends of yours or family members. Then it's okay for them to intrude in your space. But you can do these experiments, and I've done some of these experiments when I was teaching these classes, and I'd have the whole group, you know, go stand over in a corner, and I wouldn't tell them why. and you'd still find that a lot of times people still want that space around them. Now, some people think that this could be your psychic force field. You don't want people to intrude in that, not to intrude in your psychic bubble. Now, consider folks that have lost limbs. It's interesting that there is a phenomena that they have this haunting sensation, what they call the phantom itching or pains. And so they find that if you use a mirror and you or scratch that surface through the mirror, that will put those itching and pains aside. So there is something either psychological, or could this be a phenomena as well, where it does affect our self because of this energy that we produce around our body. Now, another interesting thing that could support this is people who have lost limbs. There has been some psychic research where they'll, and this only works if they had lost a limb, that they'll actually use that arm that where they had the full hand or anything and pretend like they're grabbing the pen or pencil, and when they go to grab it, they'll actually move, showing that again that energy somehow still remains. This is also a situation when it comes to the phantom limb. This also helps people with prosthetics. It tends to work with people who have actually lost limbs than people who are actually born without. And I've already covered that. So now we get into how it's perceived. Now, is it possible that our senses will perceive one thing while the equipment perceives another? Well, yes. Happens all the time. Now, every case will vary on how the spirits are perceived. A ghost can be seen by one or by all. A psychic can pinpoint a hot spot that our equipment cannot. And the combinations of activity are again endless. And again, another prime example of why it's so hard to prove the existence of ghosts. Because again, those combinations are endless. So as we get into how it's perceived, don't fall into it's a ghost state of mind. So this not only happens to clients, but it also happens to investigators as well. And that is all basically, you know, once you get in your head that a place is haunted, you're going to expect to experience paranormal phenomena. And that's not always the case. The evidence is not always going to be there. As I've said, it's all about being at the right place at the right time. And then you also have the issues with subjective apparitions, that looking for a ghost that unfortunately is not always there. So, and this is the same phenomena as where you could look in clouds and of course you'll find faces, because we are trained to recognize patterns. And of course, the most common pattern is the face pattern, where you see the eyes and the mouth. Those are the three symbols or shapes that you commonly look for when you're looking into a jumbled mess. Like as in the photo to the left here, you'll actually see a bunch of trees. And of course, we could stare at all those trees and we'll find, you know, hundreds of faces within those trees, because we're looking for that particular pattern, the eyes and the mouth. In fact, here are some photos that have been published on the internet claiming that they are paranormal. Like this person claims that they captured a face in the trees. Now, of course, they showed this photo and then they showed another photo where they circled the face. I'm just going to show you guys the basic photo. Without it being suggested by what they circled. And I'm sure we're all probably looking at different parts of this photo and we're all seeing different faces, but this is not paranormal at all. This is pareidolia, where we're actually looking for that pattern, all right? But it's not always faces. We tend to look for human-like figures as well. In this photo here, another ghost hunting group posted a picture where they claim that they captured a ghost in the background. But as you clearly examine this photo, it's very square. But they say, oh no, it's a gentleman standing back there. But again, we're also looking at a very reflective surface. So it's very easy. The situation could be that it's only half that and the other half is reflecting on the surface on the other end, doing that mirrored-like image there. But that is not paranormal. And again, this is just how we work. We'll look for those patterns. And when you are looking for spirits, ghosts, you're looking for faces and you're looking for human-like figures. Those are the first two things that you're going to look for when examining your photos or videos. Here's another example where somebody was taking a picture through a door to try and capture what they believe was a ghost, or hopefully to capture a ghost in a haunted building. And of course, they claim to have captured this. If you look to the bottom left, you'll see what looks like some, off-white coloring here. And that is nothing more than just their reflection in the window. All right. But again, they want to claim that this is paranormal, but it's nothing more than just a reflection, how it's perceived. And this one here, you might be able to see right away the face in the window. And if you can't see it, you'll see the eyes, then what nose and the mouth right there. But again, this is just reflection of the trees reflecting off the window. So if you look closer, you can actually see these are trees on either side, and this is just a reflection of the leaves between the trees. This one I love because this ghost hunter was going around taking pictures through people's windows, I guess, looking for ghosts, and claimed to have captured this ghost in someone's room, but it's nothing more than just a poster on someone's wall. So this takes us into mind games, and I know I've touched base on this in a few of my other classes, but just to kind of keep along the same lines here, just how much our mind plays tricks on us, because of course, our mind is capable of collecting incredible amounts of data, and we're trying to, explain and understand what is happening around us. So we're constantly, working on things and processing things. This makes us vulnerable to optical illusions. So again, without going into too much information, because I know I've covered this with you guys quite a bit, we just have to understand that the process of seeing begins with the presence of light, an image being formed on the retina, and an impulse transmitted to the brain. But there are many other factors that play a part in how we perceive visually. Our perceptions are influenced by our past experiences, imagination, and associations. Now, I know as we look at this, you'll see lots of black dots flashing. Again, this is nothing more than just an optical illusion in how our mind processes this information. Again, all those dots are actually white. But again, we have to also understand that when we go from light to dark on investigations, our eyes will actually play tricks on us due to this contrast as well, right here, where we're looking at extreme darks to brights. And so this can easily fool us to be seeing things that aren't there, such as shadow figures. So you have to be aware of that, or even what some people want to say when they see an orb. So be aware of that as well. Or this one where you stare at the four blue dots for a while. You're supposed to stare at it for like a couple minutes. And then when you close your eyes, you'll actually see what looks like Jesus. But again, another optical illusion, and it just goes into how light tends to burn into our retinas when we stare at bright lights for a certain amount of time. So again, using this concept when you're going from lights on to lights off, how your eyes can play tricks on you. Now, I'll give you guys a couple minutes to look at this photo, but I want to see if anybody can make out what that is. And I'll let you guys turn on your audio if you like, if you want to cue in and tell me what you think that is.
The side X-ray of the skull?
Nope.
Looks like there's teeth there.
That is actually a cow. And if you look closely, these are the ears, the eyes, and there's the nose of the cow. Yeah, so what you're looking at, that's the fence in the background.
Aha, I see.
So yeah, so again, we're trying to recognize patterns when you're looking at this and see if you can make out what this one is.
Looks like a Gila monster. Coming out of a...
Is it a dog?
It's a dog.
Where's the dog? I don't see.
You can see the back of the head of the dog. There's his collar, his front legs, and then the back end of the dog, and there's the tail.
Oh, I see. Okay. The tail looked like the head of a Gila monster.
Nope.
There he is.
It is a dog.
I see it now. Okay.
All right. So you guys can go ahead and mute. All right. So again, this just goes to show how the extreme contrasts can fool with our minds, creating these optical illusions. Now, again, simple, trickery where this looks like a face, but if you turn it, it actually spells out the word liar. And this one's been a common one where some people will see the old lady, some people will see the young girl. Again, just simple optical illusions. Now, this is another hard one. I know we've played this one before in some of our my other presentations. But again, where you try to look at the chart and say the color, not the word. And you can do this yourself since everybody's on mute. Give yourself a minute and see if you can actually do this. And some of you may struggle at first, but once you start, your brain starts to recognize the pattern of what you're trying to do. It gets a little easier towards the end. But again, this is again how the left and the right side of the brain can conflict themselves. The right side of the brain tries to say the color, but the left side insists on reading the word. And I'll skip this one because I know we've already done this before, where you can actually read this paragraph pretty easily. But it just basically, as long as you have the first piece and last piece, your mind is capable of filling in the rest. So again, how we recognize certain things by having the first part of information and the last part of the information, we can pretty much assume what's in the middle. All right. Now, as we get into levels of activity, when we get into a psychic imprint, and this is energy left behind from a deceased person or also the living as well. We're doing a lot more research or have discovered a lot more things when it comes to psychic imprints. This is also known as residual hauntings. Now, electromagnetic sensitive environments, they believe that those are more capable of recording the phenomena. Um, Again, we're not 100% sure on this. There has been the stone theory where they've explained why castles can be haunted because certain minerals in the stones that make the castle somehow records history, certain events, and it plays it out just like a trap movie or trap memories that just play themselves out over and over again. They're not intelligent, so they never respond to the environment or to the living. Okay, so it's just like somebody's projecting an image or an action into the environment, and it's just going to play out that scene and be done. All right. Now, when it comes to residual energy, we do find that negative energy produces high levels of emotional energy. So situations like murder, fighting, suicide, those tend to are captured in these environments more easier than any other emotion because it is a higher level of emotional energy. So situations that I've always stated, because the living can record information on, and that information can play out even while they're still alive somewhere else. As I've always said, you know, when you hear walking up and down the halls, and you know there's nobody there, that does not necessarily mean that it's a ghost. That could be a situation where somebody who previously lived in the home may have been going through a very stressful time in their life, and they're just pacing up and down the hall, and somehow that pacing was recorded into the environment, and now it'll play out every so often. Fighting, prime example that I use when it comes to fighting is a couple can move into a house and they'll fight so much to the point that they'll divorce or break up and they'll move away. And of course, anybody else that moves into the house right after them may be sensitive enough to pick up on that energy from the previous couple. And somehow they will start to fight with each other. And that really depends on their own sensitivity to the environment. There have been, you know, stories too where you might even hear the couple fighting, and of course you'll think it's ghosts when it was just that previous couple. Same thing with a suicide. Someone can move into a room where somebody committed suicide, and if they are sensitive enough, they can pick up on that depression, and they may become depressed themselves. It is not uncommon for some people who are sensitive enough to take on those emotions as well. And so we've had situations where somebody had moved into a room where somebody committed suicide and they become depressed and suicidal themselves. And there have been reported cases where they'll actually commit suicide as well. A prime example is I was working with a college that had to shut down one of their dorm rooms because on two separate occasions, two students have actually committed suicide in that room. So was that other student sensitive to the prior student's depression? That's something that we wonder ourselves. So these stressful conditions may be recorded into the environment just like a recorded tape. Now, orb theories. Now, again, orbs are still talked about in the world of paranormal research, and so I will bring it up, and I do have my own personal beliefs when it comes to orbs, but we'll kind of talk about it, that energy sphere naked to the human eye, believed to be linked to a ghost haunting. Now, people have described these to be a life force, ghost lights, feelers. One orb is one spirit, has been a common belief. Now, they appear in all ranges of brightness, from bright and glowing to faded and barely visible. Now, of course, they are known to emit small electromagnetic field changes. But of course, skeptics and researchers have found that a lot of orbs, probably about 90% of them, maybe a little bit more, have been known to be just dust. Some have also been reported to be just a speck on the lens. And when it is a speck on the lens, you will find that that orb will be in every photo in the exact same spot. Reflection, people have claimed that there have been reflection. You'll find that solar flares will cause orbs in your photos as well. And back in the days when digital cameras first came out, because this is when the orb phenomena started becoming really big, was when the digital cameras came out, because digital cameras were more sensitive to the dust particles in front of the lens. This is when they thought, well, maybe orbs were just empty pixels at the time. Now, of course, we have learned enough and done enough experiments, an experiment that you can easily do yourself. Just take pictures in a room in the dark and shake a feather duster in front of your camera, and you will see massive amounts of orbs. And those orbs will be in different colors and different extremes. So that's a simple test that anybody could do. But of course, people want to argue about it. And I'll get a little bit more into that as we continue on with the orb theories. Now, what should I watch out for in an orb photo? Well, dust has to be within 4 inches of a lens to appear as an orb in your photo. Now, watch your flash. When your flash goes off and you see lots of sparkles in the air, then you know you're dealing with a dusty environment, and you'll probably have a photo just full of orbs. Control shots are very important when taking photos in the paranormal world. So I always encourage people taking control shots. Multiple camera angle test. Now, this is one of the things that I came up with when we were having a discussion about orbs. And you still will deal with people that believe in orbs. Now, I have had experiences where I have seen an orb with the naked eye. I watched one float through a cemetery and disappear behind a tombstone. Now, and orbs have been reported before digital photography, so I'll kind of go briefly into that as well. So and also too, the one thing to consider, without repeating myself, sorry if I do, is science will explain that a free-formed energy floating in the air will, due to gravity, will conform to an orb. So it is very possible. But again, we have too many elements that produce false orbs. One of the things, getting back to the discussion here, multiple camera angles, what I did during one of our experiments is I had 4 cameras, the exact same camera, at all 4 corners of the room. And I had the subjects take a picture on the count of 3 every time. So I'd go 1, 2, 3, they'd all take a picture towards the center of the room. And we did this for a good, I would say, 45 minutes. 1, 2, 3, picture. 1, 2, 3, picture. And as we reviewed our photos, you'd find that one person in one corner would get an orb and nobody else would. But out of all those photos, there was one time where an orb showed up in all 4 of those pictures in the exact same spot. So for that to happen, that means that 4 pieces of dust would have to be in front of all 4 cameras in the exact same position. Now, what's the chances of that happening? Probably pretty rare. So I do believe the phenomena is out there. It's just harder to prove. And without doing experiments like that at every investigation site, we're going to be struggling to prove this phenomena. Now, of course, we'll continue on with the discussion of orbs when you have, websites out there where this group will sit there and tell you what the difference is between a spirit orb and a ghost orb. And so they go into all kinds of, looking at the outer, shell, the inner circle, or, just the energy. Some people will even tell you that this is a dust orb and these are real paranormal orbs. And again, we're in a situation where it doesn't matter what color it is. It doesn't matter how bright it is. Those can all vary on what the dust is made of. Dust that is red in color from maybe reflective source. When the light hits it, it's going to reflect red. Same thing with blue. If you hit something that is of a blue color particle, it will show more of a blue light. The extremes are going to be variance depending on how shiny it is. So these particles that are floating around us, that dust just is made up of all kinds of different things. And I know I've talked about this in previous classes. So again, we've got too many elements to produce false orbs, and there's no true way to determine what's a real orb to what's dust. And again, you'll find these arguments all over the internet, where there are a lot of people that believe that they have the ideas of what they know as what a true paranormal orb is and from what a dust orb is. And again, I hate to say it, but they're all wrong. So this is one reason why we do not use orbs to prove paranormal activity. Ghost lights. So strange forms of light, mostly seen as a bright ball of light, all right? These are visible to the human eye and believed to be an energy form of the spirit. So again, as we were talking about orbs, I went into ghost lights because, again, this has been a phenomenon that's been reported since the beginning. There are many cases out there where people have physically seen this ball of light floating through the air. And this is probably what I saw, but again, it's mostly described as an orb. Now, they're known as spirit lights. Some people claim that these are warnings from the spirit world of bad things are going to happen. Some people have reported hearing a buzzing or humming sound around them as they're happening. And they've also reported in very remote areas as well. So now one of the things too, as we get into these, they seem to react to both lights and noise. Some have seen them darting back and forth or weaving, and even disappearing when people approach them. Colors will vary and may change while observing them. And the light seems to always appear at a distance, even when you're trying to approach it. You can never get too close to it. It always seems further away. Now, there are numerous places out there where these ghost lights or phantom lights have been reported. And some of them have been debunked due to reflective surfaces. Some have even been proven to be just cars off in the distance, the headlights from cars off in the distance producing these ghost lights. But there are still quite a few cases out there where this phenomena still occurs and has not been explained. Now, skeptical view will tell you that it's nothing more than just ball lightning. And there have been some more recently videos produced that will show you what ball lightning looks like, and it's pretty awesome. I do have to say my experience was not that. But ball lightning could explain why they may be hearing that buzzing or humming noise, swamp gas, or even just optical illusions. Ectoplasm theories. That misty form. This has also been known to be naked to the human eye. Now, some people have reported seeing this as well with the human eye, and is believed to be the essence of the spirit, concentrated. Now, the theory is this could be concentrated orbs. Spirits will transform from this vaporous state before appearing as a full body apparition. And of course, spirit draws matter from the living to produce ectomatter. And I will kind of go into more of another theory that I have when it comes to ectoplasm in just a bit here. Now, they are known to emit small electromagnetic field changes as well. And the skeptic view will tell you that it's smoke, breath, fog, or even a smudge on the lens. Now, the photo in this is a photo that I captured of ectoplasm. I actually took this picture. It was in the summer, so this is not breath. And this was actually captured on film. So I did not know what I got until I actually got the pictures developed. So this is back in our early days. And if you look closely, it almost looks like shoulders and a neck, almost like a head was forming when I took the picture. Here is some other examples of ectoplasm captured. You can see this dark mass with a little bit of the light reflecting from the flash. This is another one that we had captured in a cemetery. And this was right when the EMF detector went off, took the picture, and this was captured all around her. And the gentleman in the background took a picture at the exact same time and captured the exact same thing around her. Which I got to get that photo so I can add that to the presentation too. And this is another one that I personally captured. Again, this was film. These are all film, just so you guys know. But this was actually what's impressive to me. It almost looks like it's imitating the tree, like it was trying to hide. This is one of the reasons why I think film is also very important on investigations. There's been a lot of things that we've captured on film that we still have not been able to produce as much, even with digital. Now, vortex theories. Again, an energy column naked to the human eye, believed to be a doorway to the other side. Most people will say this is concentrated spirit energy, a spirit door, or even a portal. Often felt as a cold spot. They carry a cyclone effect, and they're very rare to come across. Now, a skeptical view will tell you that this is a camera strap in front of the lens or even long hair in front of the lens. And if you do take pictures of those in front of the lens, that is the exact same phenomena that you will capture in your photos. Shadow ghosts. Dark substance can be seen by the naked eye, believed to be a spirit manifestation. Most of the time seen with through the corner of the eye. People have seen shadow people. Now, a lot of people refer to these as an entity of its own, never a living person. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that shadows are actually another form of apparition. It maybe does not have enough energy to produce color or light. So, of course, it will come off as a shadow. Some believe that these are demonic spirits as well. And again, it goes to the basic belief that if it's dark, it must be evil. A skeptical view will tell you that it's just long hair getting in front of your eyes, bad lighting, or even your imagination. Apparitions. Of course, an apparition is defined as a supernatural manifestation of a deceased person or animal, or in rare cases, objects are seen in this manner. Now, of course, only see parts of them. This is considered a concentrated ecto, psychic imprints, or some people may believe that these could also be time slips as well. And a skeptical view will tell you this is nothing more than hallucinations or bad lighting. Now, when it comes to apparitions, there are actually up to 4 different classes. Actually, yeah, 4 different classes of apparitions. Class 1 is going to be partials. Class 2 is going to be invisible. Class 3 is going to be visible. And a class 4 is a solid. All right. Now, in addition to that, there are also 4 subtypes to each of these classes. Now, I know a lot of people don't use these anymore. This is old school ghost hunting. But again, a lot of this comes from the fact that most people ghost hunting today don't have this knowledge. They don't have this training. So they're not aware of all these different classes and these beliefs. Now, the type 1 is historical apparitions, again, most commonly seen in historical spots like Civil War soldiers, that type of thing. Recurring apparitions taking place in situations where a tragic event happened, so you'll see this event happen over and over again. Modern apparitions, the type 3, which is, again, a more recently of somebody who had passed. And type 4 is a crisis or family apparitions, and these are situations where they claim that family members can come back and warn you of a certain event, or even something can come back and warn you of a crisis that will happen. Now, I've always been asked, why do ghosts wear clothes? You know, clothes were never a living thing. Why wouldn't you see a bunch of naked ghosts running all over the place? And the biggest thing that we found is by the simple fact that when people close their eyes and envision themselves in a room, they will see themselves clothed. And so we believe that how you see yourself is how you project yourself as a ghost. So not only do they wear clothes, but they're also seen carrying all sorts of objects. Tools, weapons, lamps, torches, etc. So I kind of already discussed that and how you see yourself. Now, in a lot of cases too, when people do see apparitions, they're usually missing parts of their body. And in most cases, about 90% of the cases will state that they will be seen with no legs or no feet. So when we've done those experiments where people will close their eyes and see themselves in a room, in most cases, people don't see their complete self. They usually see themselves from their torso on up. So you don't think of your legs and your feet. So that could explain, again, that theory is how you see yourself is how you project yourself. Now, poltergeist phenomena. This is a constant term that is being misused in the field of paranormal research all the time. Again, because you're dealing with people that have never had any education in this field. And when one person tells you information that is wrong, people will carry that on that information. So I'm giving you guys the textbooks information. These are from the old ghost hunting books. Before ghost hunting became, the phenomena that it is today, when there was a little more protocol to what was going on. You didn't have so many people in this field, so the information was available to those who wanted to study this. And so this is where you're getting that information from, all right? These are not my theories and ideas. I'm just giving it to you from the beginning. So again, a poltergeist phenomena is a non-human haunting. It is believed to be non-channeled telekinetic energy coming from a living person. So these are referred to as agents. Now, when it comes to agents, they found that children were the most common phenomena. Children going through stressful conditions or puberty tend to have been known to cause physical phenomena unbeknownst to them. They tend to be more malevolent or playful. Now, sorry about that. So the interesting thing about this is children was the biggest thing back in the day, but they also found out that if anybody's going through stressful conditions can cause this. Women going through menopause or even a pregnancy can cause this as well. It tends to seem to really come into focus when there are physical changes happening to the body itself. So like puberty, menopause, and a pregnancy, when those physical changes are happening to the body, it can trigger poltergeist phenomena, especially if those individuals are going through very stressful conditions at the same time. So that's when this phenomena tends to be triggered. Now, they're known to throw stones, start fires, very short-lived, sudden activity, and I already talked about the human agents. And these cases are extremely rare. So this is one of the main reasons why we have our clients journal their experiences, and we also have them write down when things have been stressful, when they've been fighting. Does activity tend to happen when they do fight? We had a couple that we just investigated not too long ago, last year, I believe, and we found that most of the activity happened when things have been stressful in the household, when they've been fighting. So that very well could have been poltergeist phenomena that they were triggering. Now, a haunting versus a poltergeist. Now, a haunting, ghosts of human beings appear frequently in certain areas and times. This continues over periods of time. And the ghost in the activity appeared in areas that the deceased were familiar with in life. Okay. Now, again, not all this applies, but again, this is what the old textbooks terms were. And the activity is not violent by nature. Now, when it comes to poltergeist phenomena, this may not be a ghost. This is not a ghost at all, but massive amounts of peak energy that is controlled unknowingly by a living person. So when they're withholding all their anger, that anger is spewing out through PK, causing doors to slam in the middle of the night. This energy can travel anywhere at any time. This activity can be triggered by a living person's trauma. And when this energy gets near to the climax of its cycle, poltergeists can become very dangerous. So they have been known to cause physical harm to the living. Now, haunted objects. There are two types of haunted objects. There's a haunted object, an object that can carry energy from a dead person it belonged to, or an object haunting, where the sightings of the objects appear as an apparition form. So situations like cars being seen driving down a road can be seen as an apparition. Horse and carriage, the carriage itself is part of the apparition itself. Boats, ships, those would be considered an object haunting, where the object is seen. Now, those usually tend to be tied into a traumatic event. So depending on how much the object meant to the living person, so going back to the first one, some of these feelings can be recorded onto the object, or in some cases they feel as if the object might be cursed. But again, when it comes to non-living objects such as trains, ships, and cars, these are usually tied to a traumatic event. Now, some people might also state that this could also be a time slip as well. But I tend to believe that these are more tied to traumatic events that took place. And so that traumatic event is playing itself out over and over and over again. More of a residual haunting. Now, testing their intelligence. How to know if you're dealing with something that is intelligent. Asking for permission to take a picture, and it shows up in your photos, knows that it's intelligent, it's responding to you. Asking them to do simple tasks, see if there's a response factor. Trying for EVP at the same time, checking to see if they are communicating with you, asking your questions. Scrabble tiles is an experiment you can do. The pen and paper test is an experiment we used to do. Now, there are paranormal stages. Now, this is where I was talking about one of the things that what I believe could possibly be going on. When we get into science, when you take a block of ice and you add energy, which is heat, what happens to that ice? It becomes a liquid form. Now, if you add more energy to that, so more heat, it becomes a vaporous form. So water becomes vapor. All right. And then, of course, when you add more energy to that vaporous form becomes a plasma form. This is simple science. All right. This is what happens to water when you add heat to it. Okay. Now, matter changes with energy. And so if we were to apply this simple chemistry or formula, I should say, to paranormal phenomena, So let's say the simplest form of paranormal phenomena is the presence. You feel a presence in the room. Now you add more energy to that. Maybe that could explain the orb phenomena. Then you add more energy to that, then it becomes ectoplasm. Then you add more energy to that, then it becomes an apparition. And then you add more energy to that, then you have your solid form. And again, these are all forms of ghostly activity. So again, applying that same recipe to the paranormal field could explain a lot of the different stages of a haunting. So what is plasma? And I'd like to do a little more research into this. Now, plasma is basically consists of a gas that is positively charged and negatively charged. And so I would actually like to see how much plasma is in the air when we investigate a lot of this phenomena. And I know we're kind of running a little over on time here. Sorry, I got a little long-winded in some of these stories. So, but again, plasma takes us into ions as well, and ions affect us during an investigation. The ions can cause the hair on your arms to stand up, the hair on the back of your neck. Concentrated ions can also give you the feel of being touched or even a cold breeze. And even more concentrated ions can actually produce light. So there is something to this. But we're not seeing a lot of research going into this. And so I have actually been looking more into some of this. We're actually developing some devices that hopefully you guys will see in the near future. Now, again, plasma makes up about 99% of all visible matter in our universe. Although naturally occurring plasma is rare on Earth, there are many man-made examples, such as neon signs and fluorescent bulbs utilize plasma to light up. Now, types of hauntings. An actual haunting is evidence of something intelligent. Residual haunting is recorded events in the environment. Family haunting, of course, is haunted by a loved one. Objects are ghosts that are attached to a personal object. Historical are ghosts from the past. Anniversary are ghosts that show up once a year. Hitchhikers are ghosts that will follow you home. That's why it's important that we do make statements, opening and closing statements, just to let them know why we're there and thank them for allowing us to be in their space. Out of body, we've already talked about that one. Poltergeist, this was never a living person, so no apparitions are ever seen. The deathbed, these are spirits visiting you before you yourself pass on, a loved one visiting you just after they have passed on. Pets, cats, dogs, and other animals have been seen as apparitions as well. And here's a funny thing, and I get asked this a lot, is, why don't we see dinosaurs as ghosts or other animals as ghosts? And in most cases, when people do see animals as a ghost, it's because they're domestic animals. What do wild animals do when they see a person? They run. So in most cases, wild animals would, if they were to show up as an apparition, would not even be seen by the living person because they would be avoiding us in the first place. Domestic animals tend to be the ones that will approach people and be seen and heard to most people. So that could explain why we don't see a lot of animals as ghosts themselves. Now, the telepathic way. Telepathy is receiving and transmitting information from one mind to the other. If telepathy used sights, sounds, smells, tastes, anything else can be impressed upon our minds and translated into sensations and perceptions. So if they believe that telepathy can occur from one person to another, who's to say that telepathy isn't part of how a ghost can also communicate to individuals? So using that theory alone, there is a belief that in some situations why a group of people, one individual will have an experience while the other group won't, because there may be some sort of telepathy between those two individuals, from the ghost to the living person, why that one person will see an apparition and the other people won't. So again, this is another theory out there. So again, I've already explained that. So messages and images can be perceived by an individual or sometimes even a group. And this could all be telepathy, and why also our equipment can't always pick up a lot of this phenomena as well. We may be seeing apparition, but it could be in our mind rather than being physically there. So you're looking at a form of transferring energy. Could these be the same electromagnetic waves that accomplish most psychic events? Well, it's very possible. Now, ghosts and children. Do our children see and sense ghosts? I think it is very possible. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that children are not trained yet to accept what is reality and what's our imagination. And a lot of times this comes from the fact that most parents, when their child is afraid, they think there's a boogeyman under their bed or in their closet. A parent's natural reaction is to tell their child, no, that is not there, that does not exist. And that's just normal for a parent because, again, you're trying to console your child. You don't want your child to be frightened. And so in a lot of cases when there could be paranormal phenomena, a ghost present, this is what starts that conditioning, when we start to tell our child that does not exist. There is nothing there. But I think in most cases, children can see a lot of these things. The imaginary friend phenomena has been reported in many cases where the imaginary friend ended up being somebody that had passed. Dreams. Spirits communicating to you through your dreams, which is ADC, after death communication. And this has been reported quite a bit, where somebody will actually be experiencing something paranormal through their dreams, seeing somebody who may be haunting location. But in most cases, they tend to be dreams of people, loved ones that have passed, friends and family that have passed. Most cases, they tend to want to just say goodbye, pass on a message to let you know that they're around, or even for spirit teachings. Now, a skeptical view will say it's our subconscious mind letting go. Cleansings. We're almost done here, you guys. Sorry. No, I went a little over. Is ghost busting real? And that is one of the biggest questions when it comes to the paranormal. And I think I would honestly say no. And there's many different factors why I say no. When it comes to a psychic imprint, residual hauntings, there's no way of getting rid of this unless you are aware of the energy source feeding it. I've suggested to people that if they have something that we believe is residual, rearrange your furniture, to try and eliminate maybe a device such as a TV or something that might be putting off a lot of EMF that we believe could be feeding that source, triggering that source for that residual energy to continue to cycle through. So that could be a possible game changer in the situation. But if you're dealing with residual haunting, you can't just, burn some sage and tell it to go into the white light. That is not going to get rid of a residual haunting. Now, if you're dealing with an actual haunting, you're dealing with something intelligent. So again, you're dealing with something that has free will. And you can't just say, hey, go into the white light and expect it to listen to you and say, yeah, I'll go into the white light. Or I've also said, are you going to be able to use a Catholic priest to get rid of a Jewish ghost? those are a lot of different elements that you have to consider when dealing with, what they want to call ghost busting. And I really don't think that burning sage or, telling to go into the white light is going to help any matters in the situation. I think if you are dealing with an intelligent haunting, you may be dealing with more of a counseling session, because we're not even aware of the communication between the two. If they hear and understand us the way that we are able to hear and understand them. For us, it's mostly bits and pieces of information. It could be the other way around for them. Maybe they only get bits and pieces of information when we go in and investigate. We can't always assume they hear us and understand us when we're there on the property. So I think in some cases, when you're dealing with an intelligent haunting, the best way to try and get that spirit to move on is that constant reminder day after day saying, unfortunately, you have passed. You don't belong here anymore. You should move on. And maybe that might be something to help whatever's there to move on, to grasp that information. So for me, it's just, I think, a counseling session. And I've already covered that. So never in any way should people be paying for a cleansing. It is never guaranteed. So how do we prove it? Well, as I've always said, it's 1 out of 10 cases that can provide some sort of evidence that there could be something paranormal going on. Keeping your evidence true and raw. All man-made and natural possibilities needed to be ruled out. And no single piece of evidence is going to be able to stand on its own. So explanation for it all? There is none. We still don't have all the answers. There's always going to be more questions than answers to this field. This is all based off of numerous amounts of theories and ideas out there. When you're dealing with electrostatic, electromagnetism, that can easily be changed, and it does not always register. And we cannot prove that that is the essence of a ghost either. We do believe that they can adjust to their environment. And there's also psi abilities that could be involved as well. And what do the skeptics say? Well, it's all hallucinations. What drugs have we been taking? So in the end, we may not be ready for the answers to the questions that we have about the spirits in the afterlife. But in due time, I do believe the answers will be found. So thank you, guys. Talk to you soon. Be safe out there.
Yeah.